Member for Esquimalt chosen.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. So, Honourable Speaker, in listening to the last few minutes, I'm sure that the listeners will be giving their heads a shake, because let's have a little reality check on what the member from Burnaby-Willingdon has just been claiming. Either he's reading from old literature or is certainly not in touch with what's happening across British Columbia in communities. This is a government that only just recently realized there was an economic crisis across this country and across this world, and only weeks ago has had to admit that, in fact, despite all of their claims to success with the budget, it has been, or with the economy, it's been completely out of their control, and we can see it now as it spirals down into deficits. We have a forest industry that is in tatters. We saw statistics in the month of January that 68,000 people had lost their jobs in the province of British Columbia. That's the reality check of what is happening here in this province. Years of squandering dollars by a government that has been fixated with mega projects, huge cost overruns like the convention centre in Vancouver, new roof on BC Place costing millions of dollars at a time when people in British Columbia are losing their jobs and worried about how they're going to get from payday to payday. We have seen 8 years of a province selling off the resources of this province at the expense of the residents of British Columbia. And so for any member of the government to sit down and talk about some rosy future here, they have to look at the reality of what is happening in British Columbia today. Madam Speaker, the government is completely out of touch with the reality for most people living in this province today, the majority of families who are making it just barely from payday to payday. And the government has repeatedly downloaded costs onto those individuals, those families, like the families in my constituency, and has made life harder for British Columbians in the last 8 years rather than easier for families in this province. And so when we talk about what the future holds, well, for many people, the future continues to be a struggle. This is a government that has raised ferry fares, has raised transit fares, has raised tuition, has raised hydro rates, has raised ICBC, MSP, a gas tax that has done absolutely nothing for climate change but made it more expensive all across this province for people to get back and forth to work. And so that's the reality, Madam Speaker, of what the economy looks like for families today, and a government that is so arrogant and out of touch with reality that they think by standing up and proclaiming that all is well, that somehow that puts a blinder on what is actually happening with families. Madam Speaker, the sell-off of BC Resources alone is one of the most heinous, I believe, actions that this government has taken, and it continues day after day here in this province. And I hear from my constituents, I know my colleagues here on this side of the House hear from their constituents, that has got to stop. That is continuing to erode the very resources of the future. If the member from Burnaby-Willingdon wants to talk about a vision for the future, let's talk about a vision for the future where BC resources are kept in the hands of British Columbians here to stay in this province and benefit our residents. We have watched the continual proliferation of privatization schemes and sell-offs of whether it's our rivers, whether it is our ferry system, whether it is the dismantling of BC Hydro. We have watched this government systematically take apart very cornerstones of the economy here in British Columbia, Madam Speaker, that in fact have proven to be of benefit to the citizens of British Columbia. Now where are they going? They're going to corporate shareholders somewhere else offshore out of this country. And Madam Speaker, that is not the vision that we would have for the future. The reality for British Columbians today, they're paying more, they're getting less, and they have watched this sell-off of British Columbia. Madam Speaker, it is time to halt that. It is time to stop the bleeding away of our resources and to make sure that whatever happens in British Columbia, it's about our citizens first and foremost, not corporations, not some flawed vision that this government has for the future of British Columbians, but in fact that it's about educating our children, making sure our healthcare system is here for us and our families and our parents, making sure that tuition is affordable, making sure that the resources of this province stay here in our hands, in the public hands of British Columbia, so it's always a benefit here, first and foremost, to the citizens of British Columbia. And, Madam Speaker, to stop offloading and sticking the hands of government in the people's pockets every single day and taxing us to death. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.